Jason Rantz, the Jason Rantz Show, very popular out in Seattle. I hasten to wonder, Jason, if the roles were reversed or this was, an uprising on the part of a MAGA crowd. The coverage might be a tad different, but your thoughts?
Oh, it 100% would be more than just a tad different. I mean, very clearly, when you look at some of the media coverage, it was mostly a blackout as it relates to some of the violence. But there was a lot of coverage of the fact that Kayleigh McEnany tweeted that 1 million people showed up. Now, clearly, 1 million people did not show up. It was, about 13 to 20,000, maybe a little bit more who showed up. But that's the focus at a time where there was this much violence in American city is ludicrous. And I think you're absolutely right. And I think any reasonable person who would see primarily white Trump supporters going to a BLM rally to go ahead and start to agitate and beat folks up, this would be the lead story for 48 hours. And there would be calls for the president to call out that kind of violence. Remember, this is just, a week after Joe Biden says we need unity, national unity. Both sides need to come together. He's not leading on this.
In Seattle, could you update me? And maybe I could have heard this, secondhand, but you can help me, Jason, that the council there is trying to justify misdemeanors if they occurred in protest or under some sort of duress in protest. I might have that wrong. Could you clarify? Because it sounds too incredible to be true, but help me here.
Oh, it's actually much worse. So there's two separate issues. Number one, for the most part, like in so many cities that are led by progressives, misdemeanors that occur or are alleged to have occurred at protests just generally are not getting punished at all. They're not getting charged, and for the most part, right after arrest, the people are getting released. However, there is a proposal that is being considered. It's been tabled temporarily by the Seattle City Council that would essentially create an affirmative defense for misdemeanor offenses, almost all of them, if they are committed by people who are homeless, who are dealing with an addiction, or who are dealing with a mental health issue. And of course, when you create an affirmative defense, it all but assures that you're not going to be punished if you actually do get charged. Now, as I've got a piece up right now at foxnews.com, to be fair, in the city of Seattle right now, homeless people who commit misdemeanors generally do not get charged as it is. And actually, the Seattle city attorney, and this tells you how crazy it is, came forward when this legislation was introduced by the council to say, well, just right now, we're just basically not doing it. You're codifying this into law. But right now, we're not doing it anyway. It's insane.
Let me ask you another question. I mean, what about protests or rallies in this, COVID environment? Obviously, they're trying to scale back outdoor gatherings in New Jersey. I don't know what the rules are, Washington State or what have you. But this notion that they want to rein in on any sort of gatherings, does it apply to those that might be political?
I mean, have you heard it apply to anything that might be political, at least leading from the left? For the most part, we had a summer of Black Lives Matter protests and lots of folks who were out there chanting against Donald Trump and chanting against the police. And we even had medical professionals signing on to a letter saying that this is the kind of rally that is necessary and appropriate, and we shouldn't be shaming them. But the second that you get into a pro-Trump rally, or maybe something that the left doesn't necessarily want folks to protest, all of a sudden there are these renewed concerns and the pearl clutching from folks over at CNN about how dangerous this is. At the end of the day, let's be consistent. Let's be consistent across the board. You have the right to protest. We're also in the middle of a pandemic. There is a surge that's happening here in Washington State and across the country, according to the data that's being released. Both things can be true at once, and it's the inconsistency in the messaging and the selective outrage that I think is pushing people on the right to be more upset with media more generally.
All right. We'll watch very closely what happens. Jason Rantz Show, host on KTTH out in Seattle. Crazy times, my friends. Everyone's got to bring it down a notch.